It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and joined in, as always, by my defense partner, Devin Little. And we are also joined in by one of our line mates, Delaney Reimer, coming back to the show. First of all, Delaney, welcome back. How's it been?
It's been pretty good, nice and busy, wrapping up my senior year of college right now. So lots of stuff going on.
Must be really busy. All right. And Devin, back on the show here again, another week. How's it going?
Another day, another dollar, right? Yeah, shout out to you, Delaney. Happy early graduation. That's the word I was looking for. I almost said engagement. Happy early graduation. Yeah, happy to be here with both of you. Excited to talk some Red Wings. Kind of sad that there's only 1 week left for the season, but we can talk about that a little bit more as we go on here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the season's winding down. Unfortunately, no playoffs for the Red Wings. We'll talk about that. But there's going to be playoffs for a lot of other teams. The Canucks aren't in it either. So we're all non-playoffs right now. So let's get into our show here with our one good, one bad. And we'll start with you, Delaney. A one good and one bad from the past week.
One good hockey-wise has to be, it seemed like it was a really entertaining game yesterday. I was watching through notifications on my phone at work, didn't get to see any of it, but it seemed like it was really entertaining, which is good for one of the last home games of the season. And then one bad is I will be attending my last Red Wings game for the foreseeable future since I'm moving out of the area, and that's very bittersweet. Very bittersweet.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I can pay $200 for some nosebleeds at the Garden now. So,
all right,
he's coming for you, Bert.
Yeah. All right, Devin, over to you. A good and a bad from the past week.
My good has got to be that game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. That moment, that shift, that I don't know what you want to call it, but where Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond, Simon Edvinsson, and Marco Kasper were all on the ice, and they're all getting into it with some of the Maple Leafs players. Michael Bunting apparently spat at Edvinsson's feet, so that was cool. But yeah, that's I mean, those are all four of Yzerman's top picks right there, right? They're all on the same ice. The future is now. Rebuild's been a long rebuild. And that was probably the most tangible, like, proof of progress that things are going to be better, because that was a really fun game against a division rival, no less, and an original six rival too. And then my one bad, I'm just going to kind of fall back into what I said. We're entering the last week of the season. Now, obviously that means for our show, it's great because we're going to start talking about off-season stuff. We can talk about all the things that could happen. But now I have to fall back to some of my side teams and start cheering them on.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Obviously, I like them for a reason, but it's not the same. I like watching the Red Wings, and only a few more games of those left. So,
yeah, I know the feeling all too well. My good is I'll echo the Toronto game. It doesn't matter what team beats Toronto. Detroit beating them is a good thing. And so that's a good. A bad, Marco Kasper only is going to get one game because he's injured, and he played injured. Insane. He played with a broken kneecap or something like that.
Yep.
Like, how do you play on that? Like, I don't understand.
You don't know.
They look good too. Like,
he looks better than some other people
at full health. Like
that's how good he looks when he has a broken kneecap. And that also meant that we also not get any images for the website either, because they did not get anything in that game. where we get our images here. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait until until next season to get ones of him on the Hockey Writers. So
Glad we had the same thought about that.
yeah.
We can just draw the logo on, just do it
Photoshop.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Be fine.
The only picture they had was that he's sneaking in on Luke Shen. It looks like just a picture of Luke Shen. He's just in the background.
Just put an arrow on it.
This is right there. He is over there.
Back there.
Okay. Well, so that was a bad. But the good thing is that he did look good in the game, and looking forward to him next season, because he's going to be probably going to make the team and be a probably very big part of the team. So that's going to be good. All right, well, let's get just the first bad news here. And, well, we knew this. We knew the Red Wings weren't going to make the playoffs, but they were officially mathematically eliminated from playoff contention this past week. But there was some good positive progress throughout the season. I mean, they were right in the conversation for a lot of the season. And there was actually times where we thought, oh, maybe they'll sneak in. But, wasn't meant to be. So the question is, we'll start with you, Delaney, on this. Are you pleased with the Red Wings' progress this season? Like I said, lots of positives. I mean, of course, there's still work to do because they didn't make the playoffs. But are you pleased with the progress?
Yeah, absolutely. I would have been happy with quite literally any progress at all, as would most people, I think. But the amount of progress, and just through the bad, we all found different people to watch, different players to appreciate, like Michael Rasmussen, for example. When he was healthy and playing this season, we appreciated him more than we ever could have imagined heading into things. So even just his development was huge. Fabry's development was huge. Seeing all the things that Huso has done, that's been huge. And just all the little things, all the players hitting personal milestones, like whether it be career games played, points, goals. Larkin just tied his all-time record for goals, I think, with 32. So just anything he does is huge. So I don't really see anything to not be happy with progress-wise. Yeah, we didn't make the playoffs. So what? It wasn't like we were going to go from being a piece of crap team to being in the playoffs within a season. One off season won't take you from whatever last year was to making it all the way to the playoffs. That's not realistic at all. So yeah, progress, very happy with it. Hopefully we'll get those playoffs again soon. Maybe not next year, maybe year after that, but it's coming. Mm-hmm. We can tell that it's coming. Even just seeing Marco Kasper pop in for that one game was enough to kind of give you a sliver of hope to hold on to, that it's coming up quicker than we may think it is. So happy for this year and excited for next year is how I'd say.
Yeah, like I said, they're on the up and up. I mean, there's lots of good things that we can talk about the Red Wings, and we've talked about them on the show. So yeah, for me, I think there's a lot of positives going into next season after that. And they're going to add even more in this draft. I mean, there's going to be at least two, I would say, quality prospects getting added to the pool. So it's going to be really exciting to see that added as well. All right, Devin, over to you. What do you think? Are you pleased with the Red Wings' progress this season? And even though they didn't make the playoffs?
I feel like just to spice things up, I should say no, I'm not, but I am. Let's face it. Yeah, I think the best way that I can articulate where this team is at and why I'm pleased with it. Three seasons ago now, that dreadful 2019-20 season where they bottomed out and COVID had mercy on them and cut the season short. They were eliminated from playoff contention in early February, I'm pretty sure. Before the trade deadline, They were already out of it. It took until basically the last week of the season for them to be mathematically eliminated this year. That's a pretty pretty sizable gap, pretty sizable progress in that amount of time. And, as you say, as Delaney says, they're they're going to continue to head in the right direction too. You should, I feel pretty confident that they're going to take another step next season, maybe another 2 steps. And what does that put them, right? I think that yeah, you can be a little disappointed. There are still some bad habits that they need to work on. Some porous defensive play against the Buffalo Sabres, like specifically. They, for whatever reason, they just can't contain that team.
Yeah.
And there's other teams too that have lit them up, and they've had their games where it's like, oh, what are you doing? So inconsistency is still a thing, but when they're on, they can contend with the best. They had that back-to-back series against the Boston Bruins, who are, like the Goliath of the league right now. And they beat them in the one game, and they were like, I forget if it was an overtime loss or if it was like a one goal loss. Either way, they hung with the best, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of a microcosm of their season. Obviously not the best team in the league, far from it. But when they're doing what they're supposed to do and they're playing to their potential, they can hang in there and steal a win.
Yeah.
And I think that like you say, if they continue to move in the right direction, this team's going to be a playoff team. I think we can realistically start talking about that next season, as long as things continue to move in the right direction. So I'm pleased they didn't take a step backwards, like Delaney said. At the end of the day, I would have been fine with just 1 step forward, but I think they took more than 1 step forward.
I agree. And the thing is, like I said, there's a lot more to go. You got prospects developing. You've got the draft coming. You've got free agency. Who knows what Sea Island is going to do there? Trades. I mean, lots of stuff that he could be doing in the off season. So, and we got a dog guest star. So
sorry, he's not happy because my parents aren't home. So he is brought him on my lap so he wouldn't start barking. So this is Jack. Jack, say hello.
Our 4th panelist. There we go.
Yes, there we go. Clearly,
all right. Well, let's get to our comment corner. Again, thanks for all the questions. We've got enough to fill the rest of our show with more questions from the fans. So thanks again for adding them to the comment section. Keep adding them. We'll keep answering. Maybe not on this episode, but we'll move it to the next one. But lots of stuff to talk about as the offseason goes. And so thanks for the questions. First one is from an old friend of the show, Lord Venom. Thanks, Lord Venom, for adding your comment. Haven't heard from you in a while, but thanks for adding in this one. He asks, what is it going to take for the Red Wings to become playoff / Stanley Cup-worthy? So what are they going to have to do to make it there? Devin, we'll start with you on this one.
To put it very simply, they got to continue to add talent.
Yeah.
I think that part of the reason why we're talking about this team, talking about being pleased with this team's progress, is that we can see a way forward for this team. We see Simon Edvinsson fitting in at the NHL level. We see Marco Kasper looking, making a difference on one good knee. And he's only going to get better, right? Edvinson's only going to get better. Seider is the first defenseman since Nick Lidstrom to post back-to-back 40-point seasons to begin their career. That's pretty good. He's only going to get better. Lucas Raymond, he's the 3rd youngest player in Red Wings history to reach 100 points. Only Yzerman and Gordie Howe did that faster than Lucas Raymond. That's pretty good. So I think that it's kind of just a natural progression of the pieces they have, continuing to get better. That's kind of the process with a rebuild, right? You just got to keep developing, keep getting the reps in, and eventually you're going to have a stacked team. Also drafting well. Like you said, Matt, they're poised to add at least 2 good prospects in this draft. I think that they should shoot for having at least 3 that you can really count on becoming NHL players. 2 first-round picks, that's huge. Well, then also, we kind of talked about this a little bit last week. I think they need to go out one way or another and get themselves a goal scorer, somebody who just puts the puck in the net. They got plenty of playmakers. We talked about this again last week. Plenty of guys who can move the puck, guys who can be creative, but they don't really have that bona fide, sniper guy who can just pot 40 goals and you can just bank on that. Kubalik's good. He can shoot, but he's at 20 goals this season. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a Patrick Line, an Alex Ovechkin, even though it's a crazy mark to set. There's plenty of other guys I can name too, but just guys that can score, and they score with regularity, and you can bank on them to be that guy. I think that's probably the biggest thing, more so that's like glaringly need to add to this team before they can take that next step. So, continue to develop, continue to draft well, continue to just take those steps, but find yourselves a darn goal scorer so you can keep up with that Buffalo offense, because apparently that's going to be a team that's going to be a thorn in their sides for quite some time, because all they do is score.
One thing with the Sabres, they keep adding, not adding, but they've got prospects in their system that are those types of guys as well. So, they're not just going to be the way they are now. They're going to keep getting better in that sense. I mean, they got to be better defensively too, but that's another story. The Red Wings, I think so too. I think the goal scoring is a big thing. It'd be good to get two of them. I mean, not just one, but I mean, at least one. They don't grow on trees, unfortunately, these top end goal scorers. But I think that's the biggest thing they have to add. And it just, like you said, get better as a team, foundationally. And that's coming. Like I said, they've got a good foundation already. You mentioned a bunch of the players that are part of that. So for sure. All right, Delaney, your thoughts on this. What is it going to take for the Red Wings to become playoff / Stanley Cup worthy in the future here?
I don't want to sound redundant and just repeat everything that Devin said, but everything he did say is very true. In this year's draft, they've got 2 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and it's another stacked draft. So you're almost definitely going to get 2 players out of that. 2 first-round picks is huge, because we got that one in the Hronek trade that no one was expecting. So who knows? That pick could bring someone like Adam Fantilli into the mix. That could bring in that's ambitious. I know that's ambitious, but you never know. There's 2 first-round picks. One could float up that high.
Yeah.
But
the lottery, you never know.
It truly could. You could land a top-notch goal scorer just by pure chance with how the lottery pans out, because it might be another one of those drafts where like the top 3 or top 5 prospects are pretty much set to go in that order. Who knows? But just keep adding that talent. And then on top of that, keep developing the talent that we already have. We've got Sebastian Cossa in the ECHL with the Walleye. You don't want to keep bringing in goaltenders and just forget about the ones that are already there. You want to keep developing that talent and keep testing that talent to make sure that it's something that can stand up to the test of time and maybe come in and help win one of those cups someday. Not right away. Not saying that like, oh, he's going to help him win a cup in 2 years. No, I'm not saying that. Who knows what goalie we'll have in 2 years at the rate things are churning. But just keep adding that talent, keep developing it. We've seen so many prospects make the jump up to the NHL this year that we might not have really thought. We weren't sure if we were going to see Edvinsson. We weren't sure if we were going to see Soderblom. We weren't sure if we were going to see Kasper. And Carter Mazur, he just made his pro debut with the Griffins pretty much immediately after Denver lost in the NCAA tournament. We weren't sure if we were going to get him at the pro level or not this year. So all of that is huge. And then everyone else who is already there, haven't talked about him in a while, but Albert Johansson's still with the Griffins. I know you were waiting for someone to mention him, Devin. No, he's your guy, but they have the talent and we have the assets to bring in even more of it. So if things just keep chugging along, we don't shell out and trade all of our top prospects for someone who's already in the league or something wacky like that. Hasn't happened yet. So I don't think Steve's going to budge on that one. Just give it all out on the line for some random guy. He doesn't seem like doesn't seem like the type,
No.
but who knows how his brain works and how many. Yeah, there are so many picks in this upcoming draft, just 5 in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And Steve Yzerman is very strategic in getting that many draft picks. And he does it strictly for the fact that he's working on building up that whole system that can help support a team and win a Stanley Cup one day. And that's not an overnight thing, as we've seen by now, because it is feeling lower than molasses at some point. But every prospect that makes their Red Wings debut is one more month, one more season, one more week scratched off of that rebuild timeline.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Just playing the long game, prospect development, acquisition, all of that is going to bring him a cup. And he did it in Tampa. He brought in the talent, he brought in the current players, and he built up that roster, and they won back-to-back cups on the foundation that he built.
Yeah.
So it works.
No, it definitely. And the thing is like, yeah, they could point to that Breezewad did a lot of this stuff too. But I mean, yeah, he complemented what was already there. I mean, he did an amazing job with that too. But again, he was under Yzerman and learning from him. So there you go. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see all this. I from a Canucks perspective, I wish the Canucks had this type of prospect pool. They don't, not even close. So, I mean, I think the Red Wings are a better path to Stanley Cup /playoff contention than a lot of teams that are in this position. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun to see all these guys develop and how Yzerman kind of moved all the pieces around, because he's done a masterful job of it. Like I say, the trade deadline, who thought he was gonna, like you said, getting another first round pick, and all the picks he did get. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the offseason at the draft and all that. Like we talked about in the last episode, he could move these picks too and do some stuff there. So we'll see. All right. Well, and now we're on to our first off the rush question. And we're going to try to keep it quick. This is supposed to be quick, not a really slow moving rush. So the first question is this is from another one of our listeners or watchers, viewers, whatever. Don. This question comes from Don in the comment section. I'd start with you, Delaney. What's your prediction about who will provide more offense between Seider and Edvinsson in a few years? Who will provide more?
I want to say Seider because of his physicality and just his knack for getting in there and getting the job done in the crucial moments when he needs to. I know it hasn't been long. Haven't seen it from Edvinsson just yet. There's time. Who knows how that'll shake out, but for now I'm going to say Seider.
All right, Devin, what do you think?
I think it's going to be Edvinsson. I think that Seider certainly is capable of putting up points, and he's already proven that. But I think he's more, if you had to compare the two, I think Seider's the more offensive one, whereas Edvinsson pretty much since his draft day has been kind of labeled as like that offensive push the pace guy. I think once he basically figures out how to produce consistently in NHL, floodgates going to open. I think it'll be Edvinsson.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I think I'm going to go with Edvinsson as well. I think he's got a bit more upside in the offensive game. I think Seider's more that two-way guy. I mean, Seider has put up 40 plus points already in 2 seasons. So, I mean, you never know. He could get even better with a partner that allows him to have more time. So it's going to be interesting. They could both do about the same too.
Yeah.
I can see it being pretty even, honestly, but
yeah,
at least for the first couple of years when Edvinsson acclimates.
So for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next question. This one is not from a viewer or comment. So the question is, and I'll start with you, Delaney. On Prospect Corner, Peter selected Andrew Cristall in the mock draft. Would you be happy with that pick if Steve Yzerman picked Andrew Cristall that high in the top 10?
That high in the top 10. I'm leaning towards no, because I could see him going on the bottom side of the top 10 or floating in those teens, but I don't know if I'd go top 10 on him.
Devin, what do you think? Andrew Cristall.
Yes and no. I like the prospect, like the player. I think it's one of those things where depending on who else is available, I don't know if he would be my first pick. I don't hate the pick. I just don't know if it would have been my pick, I guess, is the answer for this.
Yeah, I mean, there was talk, well, after the pick, we talked about it, and that he think it could be an Yzerman pick, where he picks a guy that no one thinks should go that high, but
you mean like Seider and Kasper and
yeah. And Cristall's one of those guys that's polarizing. You don't know where he's going to go. So that could happen. We'll see. Okay, well, and let's get to, before we get to our second half of the show, there's a couple of really good questions in the next half here. How to pay the bills. So this show is brought to you by the Hockey Writers Hockeypedia. Great database of information, player pages, trophies, whatever you want to know about hockey. It's there. There's lots of information getting added every day. And so make sure checking that out. If you want to know when Marco Kasper was drafted, if you didn't know, check his player page out and you'll find out. And then also lots of articles are linked in there. If you wanted to read a bunch about Marco Kasper, you can also get it on his page as well. So make sure checking out Hockey Writers Hockeypedia. There's a link in the description and just check it out. All right, on to our second half of the show. And our first, well, we're keeping our comment corner going. So our next two questions are from, one's from the guy I already mentioned, Don. There's another question from him, and this is on Marco Kasper. So we'll start with you, Devin. This is what Don asks. In 5 years, where will Kasper's spot in the Red Wings lineup be? So played on the second line in his first game. Where do you see him ending up in 5 years?
Well, this is kind of like the question as far as I'm concerned with, projecting the Red Wings moving forward. Because without, winning the lottery or, buying or, trading for like a top tier, unquestionable, better than Dylan Larkin top center. I think you have to kind of hope Kasper's at least usable as a top center in 5 years. Because let's face it, Larkin is coming up on 27 years old. That means 5 years from now, he'll be coming up on 32 years old. I think that at that point, you would prefer to have Larkin as your elite second line center and have somebody else supplant him as the top line center. And in theory, you want that to be Kasper, right? I think that that's the hope. I think that they're going to give him every opportunity to become that type of player. And I think the fact that in his very first game, he started off as the second line center is a good omen, but a lot of that's going to come down to him. Speaking of Kasper, because I know I had my reservations about him being the 8th overall pick in last year's draft. I think he's a very good prospect. I think he kind of tops out as a really good 2C. But I'm more than willing to be wrong about that. I think that, Yzerman, when he picked him afterwards, said that he thinks that, and he and his scouts thought that he had underrated skill. And I think we've seen that in the SHL this season and even in the one game he got in the NHL. I think at the very least, Kasper's going to be one of the best second line centers in the league in 5 years. Or at least being able to go, 1A, 1B type of thing with Larkin. But ideally he's taking over the 1C role and letting Larkin slide down to that 2C role.
Sure. And that's the thing. Kasper's he already looks like I said, I've mentioned this before. I think Kasper could have played in the NHL at the start of this season, personally. Yep. But it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. Before I answer the question, I'll let you, Delaney, weigh in on this. Where do you see Kasper in 5 years in the Red Wings lineup?
I said it earlier and I'll say it again. We saw a one-kneed hobbled Marco Kasper apparently absolutely dunk on the Toronto Maple Leafs, get in a little scrum, be all over the net, all up in their business, hungry for those goals, hungry for those points. And he quite literally had a broken kneecap. So if that's going to be an omen of anything, seeing a player with that much spark and that much energy come out on the ice in their first NHL game, playing as a second line center, I think that's a pretty good omen that he's going to be a huge part of this team in those top two offensive lines for the rest of his career. He's 18. He is 18 years old, pretty much a baby. In 5 years, he'll be 23, which is still kind of a baby in the league. That's still a really young professional athlete. Larkin will be going on 32, like Devin said. That 23-year-old, if he's on the same track that he's on and he's bringing that physical aspect, that just, he played through that broken kneecap. He knew it was there. And in interviews, he was saying, I felt the pain, but I knew I had to push through it. As an 18-year-old, that's kind of an intimidating mindset that tells you he's not here to screw around. He's not here to settle for a role. He's here to earn the role, and he's here to keep earning it. So I feel like he's going to work really hard, be that really strong and reliable 2C, maybe one of the best in the league, like Devin said. But in my book, maybe in 5 years, you shouldn't be able to tell the difference between his line and Larkin's line other than the numbers that are on the backs of the jerseys, because you want him to be that next generation center that the Red Wings need so badly. So just growing into that role, maybe he won't be the 1C in 5 years, because Larkin doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. But then on the other side of that coin, maybe he does slow down a little bit and Marco Kasper just works his butt off, and boom, he's the 1C in 3 years and they win a Stanley Cup or something. Who knows? But bare minimum, he's going to be a 2C unless we acquire some freak of nature prodigy that I can't think of a name for at the moment, because I really don't know, that just takes the 1C and runs within the next year. And now that I said that, it's going to happen. But no, he's bare minimum going to be that 2C, and hopefully ready to take over the responsibility of that 1C from probably a getting tired Dylan Larkin. If the Red Wings haven't won a cup by the time he's 32, he might be a little sleepy. Maybe we need that young pep in its step to really take over that first line.
Go ahead, Devin.
You know what Kasper's going to be in 5 years? Kasper's going to be a pain in the ass to play against.
No, he's going to be playoffs. A menace.
Like that kid is tailor-made for playoff hockey. You can already tell.
100%. When you go and play a game that means, obviously it meant a lot to him, first NHL game, but it meant nothing in the fact,
in the grand scheme of things.
They lose that game, who cares? They ended up winning it, but and he plays on a broken kneecap. That's something that's something Steve Yzerman would do, honestly. Which is what he did back in the playoffs back in. He played on one leg and he still was dominant. So I could see that being Kasper, and you can tell why Yzerman likes him, because, well,
he might see a little bit of himself in the mindset, even if he's going to play through a broken kneecap in his first NHL game, when he easily could have said, I'm not feeling too hot. Maybe we'll circle back to this. No. He did it anyway.
Put me in, coach.
There you go.
And he was all up in their faces. These guys that have been in the league for 5, 10, however many years, he's just right there, ready to drop the gloves, ready to push someone into the net if he needs to. if I didn't know that was an 18-year-old making his NHL debut, I think I would have believed anything you told me. Like, if he's been there for like 5 years, oh yeah, sure he has.
He well, like I say, that's why I thought he could play in the league so soon, because he's very mature in his game already. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see him at the beginning of next season, fully healthy and ready to go. So, all right. Well, you guys mentioned it. You kind of were. It's like you know what this next question is. This is another one from Dr. Detroit, who gave us a question last week as well. And he asks, imagine the Red Wings win the first overall pick in the draft lottery and draft one Connor Bedard, who is that prodigy you were talking about, Delaney, who could step in and become the first line center and be an elite, insane guy. I mean, he's already doing it in the playoffs and whatever this season he did. So we'll start with you, Delaney. What would you do? What moves would you make if Connor Bedard is now your number one center? I would think, over Dylan Larkin.
Well, yeah,
I would think.
Maybe.
What moves would you make to build around him if you drafted him?
Yeah, I guess the guy with 143 points in the season could be the first line center. I guess I can let that slide. But I'll be ambitious here and say draft Adam Fantilli. Why not just go for the duo? You want that reigning Hobie Baker. Why not? He's there too. He can score the goals. He can do pretty much anything, it seems, including rack up penalty minutes just for being there half the time, it seems, but not a ref. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, you build up a line around a player like that. You draft Bedard and you are going to cater to his needs a little bit. You are going to find him those wingers. You are going to find him whatever he needs to be successful and to put up that point production at the NHL level. The kid's 17. That is a child. He is a child, and he is probably ready to come in and smoke the absolute crap out of half the league next year. Let's be honest. We know it's going to happen, but he's one of those players you have to build around.
Yeah.
He's going to be a generational talent. He already is, if you ask me, but he's had 2 over 100 point seasons in the WHL, which is bonkers. And he's played in 4 playoff games and has 13 points. 13.
Yeah.
That, oh my God, that's 8 goals and 5 assists. And so I guess you could say he scores goals. So might as well give him anyone he needs. You sacrifice some other pieces maybe, and you give him that line and you let him go, is really all I can say, because I don't know what else you say regarding a prospect like him. He's a 1 in a million kind of guy. Like last year, the hype was all about Shane Wright. It's not even close.
No.
It is not even close, because I had my doubts about Shane Wright going first last year.
Yeah, and he didn't.
I was right.
Lo and behold.
Didn't see that first pick coming last year, but you know, whatever works.
Yeah.
People are going to choose who they're going to choose. And Bedard was saying he's fine with not going first overall. He just wants to get drafted. So like, you're not just getting a kid who can come out and put up points. You're getting a kid with a very seemingly humble and modest mindset. Yeah. Like, again, compared to Shane Wright, who came off a little arrogant about going first overall at some points, to me at least. That might not be a consensus thing, but that's how it might be.
Yeah. No, it was
death glare of the century to the Montreal Canadiens, which I guess I respect that. But yeah, no, you find who Connor Bedard wants. You ask him
Who do you want?
You go, Connor, who would you like? And then you get them.
We have cap space. We can make this happen.
We have cap space. We have roughly 700 prospects with potential. They could get him probably at least one line mate off his wish list. So it's not like he'd be going to any cap strap team out there is what it seems like.
No, any team he goes to, all the teams they're going to have tons of cap space to do whatever they want. So
yeah, and he's one of those guys people are just going to be
flinging
their money at him. Like, what do you want? What do you want? What kind of water? What do you want?
What kind of water?
Hey, this could be the next kind of like Ovi Gretzky kind of guy. You gotta accommodate.
At least, yeah.
Bare minimum.
All right, Devin, over to you. Red Wings, they draft Connor Bedard by some miracle. I mean, any team that wins the lottery is going to love it, but Detroit has a lower chance of winning it. But if they happen to, what moves would you make after that?
Well, one of the first questions we talked about, what is it going to take for the Red Wings to, become a playoff team or become Stanley Cup-worthy? Finding a player like Connor Bedard would certainly vault them up the ladder here in terms of the league. What would I do? It's kind of funny. We talk about where Kasper would be in 5 years. I feel like drafting Connor Bedard would kind of muddy that up a little bit because I don't think you move Larkin down to 3C. So like, does Kasper become like a top tier 3C right off the bat because like you put him in and if he's ready to go and Bedard's ready to go and you have Larkin, you have basically you have unlimited possibilities in terms of your forward lines because they have a lot of guys signed. They really only have like 2, maybe 3 open roster spots in terms of forwards, and that's without accounting for Kasper or even a guy like Soderblom, who I imagine will be with the team next year.
Yeah.
So to add Bedard to the mix, it's almost like, oh man, they would actually have to like move somebody out to like allow space for the other people they want on the team still. And then to also, like Delaney said, go bring in a gunslinger for Bedard to play with. Like, they would, I would have, what would I do? I'd move some things around because you have to accommodate the kid, but you also like, you're expecting to make room for Kasper too. You're expecting to make room for Soderblom. And at some point you just run out of roster space. So I'd be looking at trading Joe Veleno. I'd be looking at trading Philip Zadina. I'd be saying, will somebody throw a good pick at me for Dominic Kubalik? Like, I'd be seeing what's out there and trying to add some assets because I have to make some space now. And then I'd be throwing a bag at a guy like Tarasenko or somebody like that who can score goals on the and that is supposed to be a free agent. It doesn't have to be him specifically, but that's just an example. Or I'd go out and make a big deal because you just got like the piece to build around. So now you've got to surround him with people who can complement him. And the only other thing I'd do is, I mean, what would really like concrete answer this question? What I would do is I would start filling in the pieces to start making this team compete right away because Bedard's kind of the missing piece, the missing type of piece.
Yeah.
So at that point, you just got to get yourself a goalie to tandem with Husso. I'd even swing big at that point. I'd go get Carter Hart because why not, right? And then I would go get a defender to go play with Edvinsson or Mata or whoever, just somebody to fill out the depth, basically. And then go get Bedard, a winger to play with, at least one, spend some money, hit the cap floor, and then go from there. Because at that point, I think it's just a matter of time. Drafting a player like Connor Bedard, like you said, Matt, slim chance, very slim chance. There have been plenty of years in the past where your finger crossed because there's at least like a decent chance. This is not a year I'm exactly crossing my fingers because it's just not likely. But if they do manage to get that ping pong ball to drop, it's going to be a very fun off season for this show because we're going to have so much to talk about.
Throw a parade. Whatever city gets him. him.
We'd have to have an emergency episode. So
Oh my lord, yes we would.
I'd be hopping on a Zoom call from the draft. Like, hi.
Delaney's
Gone to the
heading back
bathroom. I gotta
upstairs.
record.
yes. All hypothetical, but it's fun to talk about. We'll see. We'll see what happens on draft lottery day. That actually is what happens. We'll see. All right. Well, let's go to something that actually, and players that are actually in the system. And our last off the rush question here. Start with you, Devin. This is actually a question that was directed to you, but Delaney, you can weigh in too because you know the Griffins. Which player from the Griffins could surprise and earn a roster spot out of training camp? Now, apart from Mazur and Johansson, he put that in there because those are easy answers. Thanks, Soap Dish 999 for that question. So, Devin, what do you think?
Who do I think could surprise? I don't know if this really counts because he just got to the Griffins, but William Wallander's probably a really good pick there. I'm a little hesitant to say him because I don't know if he's the type of defenseman they need to add. They're going to add Edvinsson, and I think Wallander's a similar type of defender. But I think he could certainly, put his name into the ring and be somebody who really makes a good push this year or next year.
Right. Delaney, what do you think? Player from the Griffins that could surprise, earn a roster spot, and not Mazur, not Johansson.
Okay, I know whatever I say is going to be kind of wonky on this one because I'm not as in tune with things. So I'm just going to go with my gut and say, if we're still having second, third string goalie issues, we're going to go for John Lethman. we're going to go straight down to the bottom of the roster and we're going to say a goalie.
Not even Kosa.
He's not with the Griffins, Devin.
Yeah, that is.
That's
all
not
right. All right.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm answering the question. But Lethman, he's not even actively playing in the ECHL right now, and he is still one of the top goaltenders in all stats in the ECHL, and he is currently playing with the Griffins. Not saying that means he's NHL caliber, but maybe he's Magnus Hellberg caliber. Maybe he's that weird middle ground of maybe you're not AHL, maybe you're not NHL, but that seems to be the Red Wings type for either a backup or starting goaltender. Who knows?
True story.
let's be honest. That's the type.
True.
So he fits the mold.
He can be Calvin Pickard, where he just kind of comes up to sit on the bench and goes in if the starter has a really bad night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we need one of those that can actually be there and do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll throw in mine, and I don't know if I'm going to say Emil Viro. I love this guy.
Good one.
He could. I mean, he's a good complementary defenseman. He could play with, but who knows? I mean, I haven't seen a lot of him. I don't watch a lot of the Griffins, but the stuff I've seen, he looked okay. I mean, it's not like he's not a big point guy, so you'd have to watch him really closely to find out how he's playing because he does all the little things. So I'm going to say Viro. I mean, this is supposed to be surprising picks. So
that's a good one. One other player I do want to throw out real quick, and it would be contingent on him having a really good summer. But Cross Hannes, I think he's one that could surprise too. He could add some offense to the lineup, and he for what it's worth, he has looked good in the games he's played in Grand Rapids. Shut down for the season because of an injury, but when he did play, he looked pretty good.
Yeah, stuff I've seen of him too. He's looked really good, so it could be an option as well. But I have to see how many moves Yzerman makes and what roster spots are available in training camp too, right? So.
One last note on Lethman: if you squint, we can pretend he's Adam Fantilli, because if you squint and look at him, it could be Adam Fantilli.
gonna say not on the ice, right? With
No, just walking past.
I love
this. I'm gonna call this one the one where Delaney is like manifesting Fantilli to Detroit. I think that's like it's like the 4th or 5th time you brought him up.
So,
Hey, Hobie, it was Hobie night.
It is Hobie night, yeah, for sure.
Well,
He just won.
if they
Like-
don't get Bedard and get Fantilli, I think we'd be pretty happy.
They'll be fine. They'll be
I
perfect.
think-
Get silly for Fantilli. That is the
Get silly for
new motto.
I'm pretty sure whoever gets Fantilli is going to think they won the lottery as well. So,
Oh yeah.
It's a close race, like in some aspects. If you don't look at points, they're both really solid.
If you don't think about it,
They're-
it's really
they're also in 2 different leagues too. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how Fantilli would fare in the WHL. He could be putting up the same amount of points.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You
Because
don't know. You don't know.
Fan-
what would Connor
Fanti-
Bedard be doing if he
In
was
the
college
NCAA.
age?
Yeah.
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 He's 17. He couldn't be in college, I don't think. So
No.
Fantilli would have gone first overall if this was last year.
no, yeah.
Easy.
Oh, jeez.
Easy.
Like
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
By a mile.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know who Shane Wright is.
There's a
Or
lot of
Slafkovsky.
prospects in this draft that the top 10, I'd say, have
Yeah.
a good chance of being the top 5 of last year's. But
Oh,
Yeah.
so,
Even like Michkov with all the stuff going on there. Like
oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
if you want to know more about these prospects, tune into Prospect Corner. We'll be talking more.
yeah.
So
Smart.
yeah, so that's gonna be fun. I mean, we're gonna talk about draft is coming up. I mean, not really, but it will be. I mean, we'll be talking mostly about that now. Once the season's over, we're gonna be talking draft, free agency, trades, all that fun stuff. So tune in. We'll be back next week. Keep your comments rolling in. We'll keep answering the questions. We fill up another show. We fill up another show, but because you guys ask really good questions, so we'll keep going. Thanks, Devin. Thanks, Delaney, for joining the show. And make sure you're checking out all of the articles over at the Hockey Writers. Red Wings, like I say, lots of coverage still, even though the season is winding down. Like I say, lots of draft stuff. There'll be a bunch of draft target articles coming out. Like I say, there's a lot. They have 2 first-round picks, so there's going to be lots of targets that we could talk about. So take a look at that when you guys get a chance. And of course, check out thehockeywriters.com for all the other articles as well. And draft coverage is apart from Red Wings coverage. There's also just draft coverage in general. Lots of prospect profiles you guys want to check out of any of the guys that we're talking about. So make sure you're checking that out. And we'll see you next time on another episode of The Grind Line.